from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez, America's favorite late-night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media. Welcome to the Monday night edition of the program. We are live and national. I'm thrilled to be with you. It's a blessing to be on this microphone. If you want to join us on our late night national town hall conversation, give me a call, 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ. And there's so much to discuss. Believe it or not, it's the end of August. And you'd think everybody and their mama is out on vacation, and many are, but that doesn't stop the news from flowing. Plenty to discuss, and we're going to do it. We're going to do it this hour as well as the subsequent hours of the program. If you haven't checked those out already, you definitely have to. I want to start with President Trump. President Trump was in the Oval Office today, El Trompito Donaldus Magnus, the 45th president of these United States, and turns out he didn't like the idea that you could get in trouble for burning a trans flag. Somebody could say that's a hate crime, but you can happily burn the American flag. So he decided to write an executive order saying that you get a year in jail if you burn an American flag. No early exits, no nothing. I love this. Check this out. President Trump in the Oval Office.
What the penalty is going to be, if you burn a flag, you get 1 year in jail, no early exits, no nothing. You get 1 year in jail. If you burn a flag, you get, and what it does is incite to riot. I hope they used that language, by the way. Did they?
Yeah, incitement.
Incite to riot. And you burn a flag, you get 1 year in jail. You don't get 10 years, you don't get 1 month. You get 1 year in jail, and it goes on your record. And you will see flag burning stopping immediately, just like when I signed the Statute and Monument Act. 10 years in jail if you hurt any of our beautiful monuments. Everybody left town. They were gone. Never had a problem after that.
Never had a problem after that. Well, look at that. El Trompito's onto something, right? You make some penalties for things that are already wrong and people should know they're wrong. And voila. Now, this hasn't stopped the radical left and George Soros and allied organizations from donating, upwards of tens of millions of dollars to protest everything that he's doing in Washington, D.C. They're up in arms. They're out there. They're very, very upset. And, the immature part of me says that, who cares? Who cares, right? I love pissing off the left. It's like a pastime of mine. But cut number two, Trump in the Oval Office. He talked about crime in Washington, D.C., and this is exactly what people are upset about. Many Democrat cities have adopted this idea of eliminating cash bail. So it used to be you got locked up and you had to put up $500, $1,000, depending on the crime, could have been a few $1,000, sometimes as much as your house, or a bond in that amount, to make sure, as collateral, to make sure that you come back for your hearing, to go to court. However, the radical left claimed racism, and they said, no, you see, because if you were born to a rich family, it's easy to put up the $1,000. But if you were born in the hood and your parents didn't have any money, then it's difficult for you to put up the money, and then you stay in jail. And if you're innocent, then you've paid time into your jail sentence that may not even be something you end up with. While it makes some sense, that's the idea of how bail works. We just have to make sure you show up for court, right? The idea is you're never going to be out of money. So if it's a day or two, now I'm not saying that you should have to do that, but I'm saying you do have options, right? It's kind of like your car gets towed. If you have money for your to get the car from the tow yard, you get it right back. $100, $250, whatever it is. If you don't, then the car stays there and it gets billed per day. Maybe you got to wait a week and a half till your next paycheck comes in. That's not necessarily anybody's problem but yours. Are we going to sit here and say, oh, we can't tow cars anymore because towing cars is, it's really messes up poor people. You know how many things mess up poor people? Lots of things mess up poor people. So I don't know that we should be making it any easier for poor people to commit crime and get right out of jail. Cashless bail has been a huge problem. And President Trump addressed that today. Listen to this.
One of the executive orders has to do with cashless bail. That was when the big crime in this country started. And I can tell you who did it, when, but I don't want to do that because others followed pretty quickly. But that was when it happened. Somebody kills somebody, they go in, don't worry about it, no cash, come back in a couple of months, we'll give you a trial. You never see the person again. And, I mean, they kill people and they get out. Cashless bail. They thought it was discriminatory to make people put up money because they just killed 3 people lying on a street. Any street all over the country, cashless bail. We're ending it, but we're starting by ending it in D.C., and that we have the right to do through federalization.
Now, let me tell you, this is a good thing. This was the beginning of the end for so many places. New York City, I remember when this happened. It was 2020. In 2019, all of the career criminals, and I'm talking about career criminals are people that wake up every day, usually use some sort of drug. They put their illegally obtained, illegally owned firearm in their waistband, and they go to work, whether that's getting on a stolen moped and sticking people up in the Bronx, or whatever their particular brand of crime is. But this is what they do for a living. They're professional criminals. Now, I think the idea is always to eliminate that segment of the population, right? Whether through incarceration, whether through rehabilitation. Somehow, some way, we can't allow people to just be crooks. You can't be in the streets. I think that's a given, right? We can submit and say, look, okay, there's always going to be an element of crime. I get that, right? Evil exists. But that doesn't necessarily mean that we have to promote it. And that's what these no cash bail laws have done. So kudos to President Trump for doing that in D.C. Godspeed to anybody trying to get it reversed in New York, because that has brought the city into such a horrible place. Every crime that you can imagine, nobody cares about going to jail. They know that they're going to have handcuffs on for less than an hour, even on some gun charges. I mean, really, it's very upsetting. And this is why you see illegal aliens flock to places like New York, because it's sanctuary to protect them. It's a sanctuary from accountability. It's a sanctuary from being held accountable. Who wants that? I certainly don't. Anyway, there's a couple of things else that we're going to talk about. Oh, President Trump today delivered a brutal letter. Brilliantly brutal, I'm going to say. You know, he was famous for the phrase, "You're fired," right? He made that phrase famous. And today he delivered a "you're fired" moment to one of the governors on the Board of Governors of the Federal Reserve, Miss Cook. And let me tell you, it was a beautiful thing. I mean, sometimes I can have an appreciation for somebody who's going to go out of their way to, I don't know, I guess to soften a blow, to use a little bit more flowery language in dismissing someone. But President Trump, he let her have it in this letter. And I'll read you the letter in a little bit, but my favorite line from it was, "You are hereby removed from your position on the Board of Governors of the Federal Reserve effective immediately." And yes, that's literally in the first sentence. So how about that for smooth? Kudos to El Trompito. Now, I want to continue to talk about this no cash bail. I want to talk about crime. I want to talk about anti-Semitism. I want to talk about this, I'm going to call him a weakling, Zoran Mamdani. I call him Mad Manny because he's a madman. And he was doing chest day today. He was bench pressing in the middle of the street, and he had a really big spotter on him. I mean, the guy didn't really do well with his 135 pounds that he was putting up. And again, listen, I've struggled with 135 pounds at some point. But I'll say this. It was an embarrassing moment for the guy. Very embarrassing. If you're going to lift that kind of weight and you can't do it, then maybe you should, do it secretly. You do it in your basement. Don't do it in the middle of the street with all the cameras running. But what do I know? Anyway, we're going to talk about that and so much more. There's plenty to discuss with this New York City mayoral election and how it's going to affect America. Don't go anywhere. Dov Hikind is coming right up.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
Well, thank you, Rich, and thank you for everything. I know you very well, and I listen, but I have a lot of people that listen, and they love your show, and I appreciate it very much.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
Republican and independent candidate Curtis Sliwa is third in the American Pulse poll with 17% of the vote. This morning, he addressed the crime issue, a key concern for many New Yorkers, especially in the Bronx.
In the Bronx, the 4-5 precinct has had a 150% increase in shootings. And we saw that on Saturday, 4 teenagers were shot by somebody on an e-bike, a motorbike, who was able to get away on the corner of St. Peter's Avenue.
That, of course, is New York City mayoral candidate Curtis Sliwa, the founder of the Guardian Angels. And I want to get some reaction to what's going on in this mayoral race. I want to hear from somebody on the ground who can tell us about crime, who can tell us about the attacks against Jews and everything else that's going on in New York City. I want to bring in Dov Hikind, former New York State Assemblyman, founder of Americans Against Anti-Semitism. Assemblyman Hikind, welcome.
Thank you. Great to be with you, Rich.
Yes, sir. Thank you. And I want to pick your brain on this because I know that there's been a lot of reports about the Jewish community, of which you are an adamant member, always advocating for your community, and a lot of talk about them supporting Adams. And I've seen no improvement for the Jewish community during the Adams administration. He seems to be a very like a Johnny-come-lately. Every time something bad happens, he says, "Oh, we should probably appoint an office for this. We should probably look at this." But somebody who's been out there guarding synagogues and been out there building relationships with Orthodox community, with the Reform community, with really all faiths in New York City, keeping them safe, is Curtis Sliwa. Tell me what you think of what's going on right now in New York City.
So, no question, Curtis has been out there forever. I know Curtis for, 40, 50 years. I was a member of the New York State Assembly for 36 years. He was always out there in communities all over the city of New York, wherever he was needed. And regarding the Jewish community, I'm very, very optimistic that, and I'm supporting Curtis and going to be getting very involved in the coming days and weeks to make sure that the large parts of the Jewish community that I represented and others get behind Curtis. There was a point right after the primary where a lot of people were sort of running towards Adams. And by the way, you are absolutely correct, Rich. You would think that Mayor Adams became mayor only 2 months ago, right, instead of 4 years ago, because, all these initiatives, even creating a task force on anti-Semitism, which he did about, 2 months ago? Yeah. He's been mayor for 4 years. Anti-Semitism has gone through the roof, numbers that we have never seen in history, and even worse after October 7th. So where was he, a year ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago?
Where was he on October 7th?
Exactly. So I think Adams, a lot of people were moving towards him. They thought that whatever nonsense, it's over for Adams. He's done. It is only a question of time, I believe, with all the scandals and the latest scandals. I don't know how in the world he stays in this race. And, he's running like, what is it, 8%, 9%? And the next poll, I guarantee you, it'll be less than that. So I think Adams will be out of the picture. And I believe that the vote that Adams is getting, most of it, if not all of it, will move towards Curtis Sliwa. So, look, we got a long way to go. I think the most important thing, God forbid, I use those words. I don't use words like that. In politics, I've seen everything in my years of being involved. But Mamdani is an absolute disaster for the people of New York, not just for the Jewish community, way beyond that. He will destroy New York, no question about it. And at the same time, Rich, we cannot take him, he's a serious candidate. If we watch him in action, he's good. He's a great politician. I watch his ads. They're fabulous. But we can definitely defeat him. There's no question about that. So, we got to watch, Labor Day's coming up, mid-September. We'll see what develops. But I believe that Curtis is going to be the guy who will be the last man standing. I really, truly believe that. If there's anyone who really represents the people out there in a real way, everybody's a politician, everybody, whether you're in politics or not, everybody's a politician. But, Curtis is a guy who really is from the people. Who gets on subways all the time, rides subways and to protect people and the guardian angels, these young men and women in New York and all over the country and all over the world. That's something that Curtis has accomplished. And when you look at the other people, you got Adams, forget it. Over. Then you got Cuomo. The guy was governor, for God's sake, okay? And I know him very well. This is a guy that I got to tell you, honestly, knowing him, this is the last guy in the world I want to see win, except for Mamdani. But Cuomo left being governor. He resigned. Okay, you
in
resigned
scandal.
Being governor. We'll give you the job being mayor of the city of New York. Is that ridiculous? And besides that, Rich, he had his shot. He ran. He ran in the primary, and he was going to win until the last moment, and then he lost, and it wasn't even close. So it's Curtis Sliwa all the way, and I would tell everyone out there who's listening, or you have family, friends in New York, it's time for all Republicans to come home and support Curtis. Moderate Democrats, independent. There's no question that Curtis can win this race, and it will be a huge victory for all the people of New York and for the nation.
Yeah, I agree with that. Amigos, we are on with Dov Hikind. Dov Hikind was a state assemblyman from the state of New York, representing Brooklyn, New York, for 36 years. He was in the New York State Legislature as a Democrat, and he's supporting Curtis Sliwa, the Republican, for mayor of the city of New York. When we come back, I want to get your thoughts on Mamdani and continue this conversation, because it's like you said, there's no way these other guys make it. Dov Hikind, stick around. Amigos, we're coming right back with Dov Hikind, former New York State Assemblyman, and me, Rich Valdez.
The best guests, the best opinions. This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
The Trump administration is one that we can see a model for how to fight it across this country. We can see that in Mayor Wu in Boston. We can also see it internationally with President Sheinbaum of Mexico, where it is through strength, it is through belief in the convictions that you hold in the very fabric of the city you represent, that you are able to fight back against an administration that is seemingly hell-bent on tearing apart this city, and doing so most especially through legislation that will throw millions of New Yorkers off their health insurance, cut SNAP benefits from the hungry, and will make it even more difficult to afford to live in the most expensive city in the United States of America.
That, of course, is Zoran Mamdani, not to be confused with the nickname I have for him, Moron, Mad Manny. And this guy is truly something special. As our guest aptly pointed out, he is a good politician, right? He's not trying to touch this stuff with Curtis because he knows it's a losing battle. So he runs against Trump because he figures he knows enough New Yorkers out here that don't like Trump. I'm going to run against Trump. And that's what he's doing. He's running against Trump. He's doing bench presses in the middle of the street that he can't even do. He needs a lot of help to do. But he's out there, trying to pull the wool over everybody's eyes. And I, for one, don't think it's going to work. But I want to bring back our guest, Dov Hikind, former New York State Assemblyman for 36 years, a Democrat, and supporting Republican Curtis Sliwa. Dov Hikind, when you hear Zoran Mamdani, this, I'm going to say he's an avowed anti-Semite and kind of proud of what he typically says. And he says that they're going to run against Trump. What do you think of his strategy?
Look, the bottom line is Mamdani, socialist, a communist. Ask everyone out there, politicians who make promises that everything will be for free. You don't have to worry. We'll give you housing. We'll give you free transportation. By the way, transportation in New York is almost free because people don't pay the fare. 65% of people who get on subways in New York skip over and don't use the token or anything else. So, people who make these kind of promises, the quality. How many people in New York, in America, want to take a boat to Cuba? Do you know a lot of people who want to go to Cuba?
Nobody's going that way.
Equality, right? I mean, we have something called the USSR, right? The Soviet Union back in the day. I mean, who? Oh, wait a second. China. A lot of people in America or anywhere in the world want to get into China. Do they have a problem with people crossing their border because they want to live in China? I mean, that's communism, socialism, Marxism, and that's what Mamdani is all about. Look, the polls clearly indicate that a majority of the people are there to vote against Mamdani. The real question is, how many candidates are going to be left? I think Adams will be out. What's the story with Cuomo? We shall see. But I believe that Curtis is going to shock the world with an amazing win in November. As far as the anti-Semitism, look, what does it say? Mamdani supports terrorism. Now, why am I saying that? He supports terrorism? Really? He's such a sweet guy, Rich. Come on, he's got a nice smile. But let me tell you why I'm saying that. Globalize the Intifada, which he himself has made very, very clear. He will not tell people not to use that phrase. Or from the river to the sea. Forgive me for doing this, Rich, what I'm going to do right now. I hate to use Senator Chucky Schumer, okay? He wrote a book, believe it or not, on anti-Semitism recently, okay? He's done nothing to fight anti-Semitism, but he wrote a book on anti-Semitism. And let me tell you one of the things in that book, very clear, okay? Can't remember the page, maybe 145. He says the following. This is the leading Jewish Democrat in the nation. He says, globalize the Intifada means the murder of every Jew in Israel, Rich, and he goes a step further. He says it means murdering Jews everywhere. So Mamdani is a Democrat. This is when he's in the streets demonstrating with these people who support Hezbollah and Hamas and the Houthis and Iran. This is who he is, regardless of the fact that he has a nice smile. Forget about that. This man will destroy New York. And I have never said that about any candidate. But this guy is super, super dangerous for the well-being of America, for the well-being of the people of New York. So we can win, defeat this guy, retire him, which would be beautiful. And I hope to God, with God's help, that's exactly what's going to happen. Look, we're only in the second inning. The game doesn't even start till after Labor Day. We got a long way to go, Rich.
Yeah, I agree with that. Amigos, we're on with former Assemblyman Dov Hikind. He's the founder of Americans Against Anti-Semitism. And Dov, what do you recommend for our listeners that are listening and say, I like this guy, even though he's a Democrat, I like him, and I want to learn more about his organization. Where do they go? How do they follow you?
Well, first of all, Rich, it's AmericansAA.org. Just want to let you know that I was a Democrat, but my wife and I actually switched to the Republican Party just a short while ago. So, again, can I tell you, Rich?
Yeah.
Let me tell you what I really am. American. I'm an American, number one, and a very proud Jew. But, of course, we all know that the Democratic Party today has been radicalized, has moved so far to the left. And that's why the people in this country, they get it, they understand. That's why the Democratic Party, actually, the Republican Party, there are more Republicans in America than Democrats. That has happened only in the last year or two, and that is amazing because people get it, that the Democratic Party today is not the Democratic Party your parents or grandparents supported. And I say to everyone out there, forget about the labels in November in New York. Be an American, be a New Yorker, and vote for Curtis Sliwa. Forget about the labels. This is one time you must do that.
Really well put. Dov Hikind, founder of Americans Against Anti-Semitism, AmericansAA. Is it .org or .com?
.org.
I appreciate you being here, sir. You're a gentleman, a scholar, and a patriot. Godspeed to you, and I look forward to our next conversation.
Being with you, Rich. Be well.
Likewise. God bless. And amigos, your thoughts, your calls, your reactions on the communism of Zoran Mamdani or the incompetence of the guy who made bail reform, what they call bail reform, which made it illegal to take cash bail in New York State. That's Andrew Cuomo when he was governor. Now he wants to be mayor and keep breaking things. I think not. We're going to talk about that and so much more. Plus, I got a good report on Mayor Eric Adams. He's trying to disassociate himself from his chief of staff, his deputy mayor, his senior advisors, all sorts of people that have been involved and worked with the people that are getting indicted in his campaign. It makes you think, is he a cooperating witness? Is that how he managed to keep himself out of jail, by throwing everybody in his administration under the bus? His police commissioner was locked up. Now his senior staff is being locked up. This doesn't look good for him. More to come straight ahead. I'm Rich Valdez.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. Call now, 833-4VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
Mayor Adams says that he wants to double the number of small businesses in New York City. That was the focus of his campaign for re-election today. And Zoran Mamdani was also out campaigning. He was focused on making roadways safer and also for calling for an administration that is not mired in alleged scandal.
Too many Greenpoint residents have been killed on this asphalt.
Mayoral candidate Zoran Mamdani today campaigned for a safer stretch of roadway in Queens along McGinnis Boulevard, where plans had been approved to reduce cars and speeds, a plan that was trimmed by Mayor Adams' administration. Last week, the former chief advisor to Eric Adams was indicted on new bribery charges for allegedly selling out the city. According to the district attorney, Ingrid Lewis Martin conspired to have the Department of Transportation withdraw the street redesign of McGinnis Boulevard in exchange for money, a TV appearance, and free food.
It begs the question of what the safety of New Yorkers is worth. Is it not worth more than $12,500 and a cameo in a TV show? Is it not worth More than crab cakes and clams at Gracie Mansion?
On topic, on topic.
For his part, the mayor, who's running for re-election, refused to answer questions today about whether Martin Lewis was still a part of his campaign.
I got a campaign to run. I don't have to speak to her attorney, speak to her. That's a wrap. It's over.
So, again, that's New York City Mayor Eric Adams, the guy who's literally the mayor, who's been there for 4 years, who's done a whole lot of nothing except bad things in the last 4 years. And take me to task, right? I want you to, if you disagree and you say, Rich, all you do is beat up Democrats, find me where this guy made New York better, right? Where he was receiving the accolades for doing X, Y, and Z, for bringing in new jobs, where he was, I don't know, making it safer. Anything. Because we all know this old trick that everybody uses, including his police commissioner. The last one got indicted. Now this new one, because she's from the New York aristocracy, the daughter of a very prominent builder, the heiress to a billionaire fortune, Jessica Tisch. She is supposed to be above. I don't know her, but I can tell you, I don't see. It's kind of like when they said things are safer in D.C., not because of Trump, but before, right? Saying, oh, there's no need for this. Crime was down 24%. Yet you got the neighbors saying that, they've been shot 4 times. New York City's the same thing. You've got federal police that are here on vacation getting shot in the face, in the neck. You've got all sorts of criminality coming out of New York City. So to suggest that crime is better when I've literally spoken off the record with so many NYPD officers that all they can tell you is, look, I can't wait to leave. They can't wait to no longer be cops in New York because they've been hamstrung, because they have their hands tied behind their back, because they've been told not to mess with the illegal aliens. They let them right out faster than they let out the citizens. So what do? They just go, hey, guys, don't do that. Or they go to lunch when they see something bad happening because they got no choice. They're going to get sued personally, individually, because of all these stupid rules that they've put against police in New York City. This is the result of not a single Republican. All Democrats have done this to destroy New York City for whatever their particular reason was. Racial equality, maybe they want to lower property values so that they can make a deal somewhere, buy a big parcel of land. Who knows? But the idea of cashless bail, no cash bail, stupidest thing ever. What else did they do that was stupid? You name it. Making the cops individually liable for something that goes down. So, it used to be, listen, we got your back. If things happen, if you get into a little tussle, somebody throws a punch at you, throw a punch back, don't worry, we got you. Now it's, oh, no, listen, you get into a little tussle at work, you're on your own. Guess who's not even going to try when somebody's resisting arrest, when somebody's trying to evade them? They're going to go, oh, he got away, sorry. You are hurting the people by weakening the police. And it's clear. You've got, I think, 300 cops a month retiring. Outrageous numbers. Not a single Democrat out there saying, no, you're right. You're right. It might have been Dov Hikind who was the only Democrat out there saying it. But guess what? He's not a Democrat anymore. I mean, you turn on the news today and you see the rapper Snoop Dogg, who I'm a big fan of. I know a lot of people don't like. I like him. And Snoop saying, I went to the movies with my grandson. And I didn't know what to say. I mean, when you have this type of thing affecting people all over the place, this is a bad deal. It's a bad situation. People are in bad shape. Bad, like Harry Enton says. So I want to get your thoughts on that if you guys want to chime in. 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. America at Night with Rich Valdez.
They're patently false, and the president knows it, and the housing agency, president's person, Pulte, knows it. He's essentially doing the president's bidding. against me, against Letitia James, against this person on the Federal Reserve. Mortgage is their new weapon to go after their critics. But I've been very open about my residency, both in California and in Maryland, with my constituents and with the lenders. So there's no there. But the common denominator is they will manufacture anything to go after their critics, after members of Congress to try to silence them, after John Bolton, after people in the Federal Reserve, after generals, after former presidents. They're investigating Comey and Clapper, the Obamas, the Clintons. Basically, it's free reign with a corrupt leadership at the Justice Department.
That is California Senator Adam Schiff complaining about El Trompito and the Department of Justice looking into his affairs. And, I can't help but think, if you ever been on the subway? Maybe you haven't, but I've been on the subway plenty of times, and somebody will get on and say, look, if you could spare $1, I'd appreciate it. I'm not going to lie to you and tell you I'm just trying to get something to eat. I'm just trying to get high. I'm trying to be honest with you. And most people laugh at that, and it elicits the response of them wanting to help because they're rewarding the honesty. This is the approach that Adam Schiff is taking. Adam Schiff is here saying, look, I've been very open about my fraud with my constituents about having dual residency. Now, it's not fraudulent. Of course, all members of Congress live in their state, represent their state, and spend a good amount of time in Washington because they work here as congressmen. However, you can't say I'm going to buy a house in Washington and make it my primary residence. Why not? Why? Because you can't. How could you if your primary residence is your home state? It's clear as day. But beyond that, he's talking about him and Letitia James and this woman on the Federal Reserve. Well, that woman is Lisa Cook. And Lisa Cook has been removed today, removed from office. She was fired. You're fired, Lisa. Lisa, you're fired. And Trump wrote a beautiful letter, a big, beautiful letter to oust her for allegedly lying on mortgage forms by declaring 2 primary residences, which, of course, you can't have 2. In a letter to Ms. Cook, Trump said the Federal Reserve Act provides that she can be removed at his discretion. Writing in the letter, here's a quote, as set forth in the criminal, this is from President Trump to Ms. Cook, as set forth in the criminal referral dated August 15th, 2025. I'll continue in my own voice. From Mr. William Pult, Director of the Federal Housing Finance Agency, to Ms. Pamela Bondi, Attorney General of the United States, there is sufficient reason to believe you may have made false statements on one or more mortgage agreements, Trump wrote. For example, as detailed in the criminal referral, you signed one document attesting that a property in Michigan would be your primary residence for the next year. 2 weeks later, or in our SpongeBob voice, 2 weeks later, you signed another document for a property in Georgia, stating that it would also be your primary residence for the next year. It's inconceivable that you were unaware of your first commitment when making the second commitment. It's impossible that you intended to honor both of them. Trump also wrote that the Federal Reserve has tremendous responsibility to set interest rates and regulate banks, and he added that Americans must have full confidence in the honesty of those setting policy and overseeing the Federal Reserve. So with that, he says, you're fired. And you got to love it. He's playing by the book over here because he has to play by the book. He's Trump. If not, they'll come after him. Anyway, amigos, we will continue our conversation straight ahead with many of you. For some of you, this is the end of the road. To you, I say, hasta la próxima. Take care. Good night. God bless you, America.
Live from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez, America's favorite late night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media. Welcome back for another hour of our program. We're live and national this Monday night. It's a blessing to be here. If you want to join us, give me a call, 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ, if you want to get in on our late night national town hall conversation. And let me ask you a question. When was the last time someone asked you to run for office and you were like, I don't know. Right? Now, maybe some of you are saying, yeah, that happened. Maybe others of you are saying, no, it's actually never happened to me. Well, I'm going to play a clip of audio for you that came out over the weekend that I brought to my attention over the weekend. And then I'm going to pose these questions again. I want you to listen to this report out of Minneapolis. Check this out.
Changed its noise ordinance, now allowing the Islamic call to prayer to be broadcast from speakers.
I want to take it directly from the top to make sure we don't miss anything. Here we go.
The city of Minneapolis changed its noise ordinance, now allowing the Islamic call to prayer to be broadcast from speakers year-round 5 times a day. In tonight's Weekend Journal, David Schumann of WCCO reports it is a first for a major U.S. city.
The Muslim call to prayer, recited in here, heard out there.
It is a very
5 times a day, Muslims gather to pray at mosques, but the broadcast for the pre-dawn and nighttime prayers weren't allowed in Minneapolis until now. The city eliminated time constraints from the part of its noise ordinance related to religious worship. In the summer, that means the call could go out as early as 3:30 a.m. and as late as 11 p.m.
As late as 11 p.m. Again, now, the reason this happened is because the city of Minneapolis has an all-Muslim city council. So they're voting to expand the reach of the call to prayer. This also happened recently in another city in New York, close to Albany. Shout out to WGDJ. And for years, there's been at least 2 or 3 calls to prayer on loudspeakers in the city of Newark, New Jersey. Now, I bring this up not because of Islamophobia or anything like that. You know that's not my position. But it's to ask you a series of questions. To ask us, right? Because I'm including myself here. When was the last time someone asked you to run for office so that you can have an all-Christian city council? All Catholic. I'll wait. When was the last time somebody said, hey, there's a building, a burning building. It's on fire. Would you help me to put out the fire, or you want to sit there and complain? Maybe if we complain, the fire will stop, right? People see what's going on with the growth of the Muslim faith, and people who don't agree will say things like, we need to deport them, we need to do this, rather than maybe beat them at their game. Right? I mean, that's just an idea. Now, perhaps you think that we can just stop the flow of all immigration. Guess what? Trump's kind of done that, right? Illegal and illegal. I think some legal immigration's coming in, obviously, but nobody's coming through the border. So we're not getting any more immigrants of any faith, right? Because at least illegal immigrants. And that's a good thing. But maybe some others would say, well, then we have to suspend immigration from countries where people are inconsistent with Western values, with American values. Well, I think, you can try to do certain things based on geography, based on maybe a war zone, but you're going to face a lot of court problems, just like, trying to get this MS-13 guy out of the country. Now they're talking about deporting him to Uganda. I'll get into that in a little bit. So what is it that we do? We cross our arms, we pout, we cry? We whine a little bit? Because that seems to be the response that many of us hear. The problem isn't that there's a call to prayer going out in Minneapolis or New York or Newark, New Jersey. Contrary to the report, this is not just happening in Minneapolis. It's happening in a few cities across America. Because the Muslims that are here have chosen to get politically involved to advance the cause of their faith. And you and me and our neighbors, quite frankly, haven't done the same. They've literally decided to come to another country to proselytize their faith, to create communities in America's largest cities. This was their plan. This is what they're doing. They actually dedicate their lives to this, to having children and to serving their God. So ask yourself, is this what we're doing, right? And I'm including myself. I'm checking myself here. Because I can't sit here and say, oh my gosh, Christianity's falling by the wayside, if I'm not bearing 5 or 6 children and contributing to my faith, right? I don't think I can make that complaint. But that's what they're doing. So I think Christians have to ask themselves, are you willing to have 3, 4, 5, 6 kids? Because the problem isn't that the Muslims are organizing and winning city council seats. I would say the problem is that Americans have an expectation of doing nothing and getting results. And I hate to put it that bluntly. But how can we complain if they're putting in the work? How can we complain if they're organizing and we're not? How can we complain if they're raising their children according to their beliefs and we're saying, nah, you don't have to go to church this week? Can we complain about our children? I mean, what are we going to do? Not decide to buy the house next door? Move to a different neighborhood? Not have a large family? Because a lot of people used to buy the house next door, grow up in this neighborhood. My parents grew up here. My parents lived next door. I bought the house next door with my wife. We raised our kids here. Right? That used to be part of the American dream. Sadly, it's not so much anymore. Now you've got people that are like, oh, yeah, no, he went to college over whatever. He met a girl there. They moved to California. Right? This is what's happening with our communities, with our families, in many ways. So, like I said, I'm just as guilty as everybody else here. I'm just not going to complain because I know that I've taken a back seat on this. I only have 2 kids, and one lives in Florida and one lives with me. So what do we do, right? I think the fundamental question before us as we ask ourselves, are we prepared to do something other than complain? Are we prepared to organize, to run for office, to spend less time working on our boat, less time earning our living, less time doing things so that we can actually protect our community, live in a culture that we can pass on to our children, right? A church community, perhaps. It's not about Muslims being bad or good. It's simply about the preservation of your own beliefs, your own customs, your own culture, and how much you actually believe in those things and how much you're willing to let them go or how much you're willing to preserve them. I mean, I oftentimes look at President Trump for a lot of things. And one of the things I can say when you look at Trump, you see this. They tried to kill him. They tried to jail him. They've sued him at every turn. Yet he remains steadfast. He continues to advance his MAGA agenda. He has his family on board. He lost $1 billion of his wealth. This was a big deal, right? I wouldn't want to lose $1 billion. Now, some of you are saying, well, listen, Rich, it's easy to lose $1 billion when you have a couple other billion in the bank to lean on. And that's probably true. But that doesn't mean that we're powerless. That doesn't mean that we're visionless. That doesn't mean that we can't see the future that we want. And we have to work to create that future for our family, for our children, for the preservation of American culture. This is something that you're either in or you're out, right? And that's the bottom line. I'm not making a call to violence or a call against any culture or religion in particular. This is my call against complacency within ourselves. When I was growing up, I had the benefit of seeing the Statue of Liberty all the time. And in fact, from our New York City studio, you can actually see it from the windows as well. And as she stands there, in New Jersey, by the way, she's not in New York Harbor. It's New York Harbor, but on the Jersey side. The Statue of Liberty remains a beacon of hope. And I guess my question for all of us, myself included, is, are we going to follow her lead? Are we going to give me you're tired, you're poor, and still move forward with protecting America? Because that quote's not just for immigrants. I believe it's for the citizens of the United States. Are we going to be tired of being poor, tired of being tired? Are we going to rely on weakness, or do we believe that we have the power to make a change and preserve this constitutional republic that God gave us, this culture that we have? I guess the answer lies within us, right? Anyway, there's something that always comes to mind when I have moments like this where I have to look at myself in the mirror, and I'm doing it with you collectively. And that is the reminder that President Reagan gave us, that freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. Listen to this.
Our founding fathers here in this country brought about the only true revolution that has ever taken place in man's history. Every other revolution simply exchanged one set of rulers for another set of rulers. But only here did that little band of men, so advanced beyond their time that the world has never seen their like since, evolve the idea that you and I have within ourselves the God-given right and the ability to determine our own destiny. But freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. We didn't pass it on to our children in the bloodstream. The only way they can inherit the freedom we have known is if we fight for it, protect it, defend it, and then hand it to them with the well-taught lessons of how they in their lifetime must do the same. And if you and I don't do this, then you and I may well spend our sunset years telling our children and our children's children what it once was like in America when men were free. Thank you.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
By the way, your ratings are up. Congratulations, everybody. It's always nice to check. I like to see, even if they're friends, I like to see how are they doing. Are people listening, right?
That's
right. But you're doing great.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, amigos, welcome back, familia. We continue the conversation with you all, we, the people, the American people tonight. Of course, you know the number 833-4-VALDEZ. And right now, I want to dig in with one of our experts because we're talking about the world at large, and there's so much going on. You've got communist influence, you've got radicalism that's all over the place, unchecked immigration globally that's causing a lot of unrest, and we've begun to check it in the United States, but it's just the beginning, right? We're 200 some odd days into this administration, and the problems are getting better, but they're not solved. And I want to get to the bottom of this because there's a lot of talk about the communists in China doing, they're on the move. They're on the move, and there's a lot that they're up to. And I want to bring in Frank Gaffney. He's president of the Institute for the American Future, founder of the Center for Security Policy, and he's with us right now live. Frank Gaffney, welcome, sir.
Thank you for having me. It's great to be with you.
You bet. Now, Frank Gaffney, I want you to listen to this quick clip I've got from NTD News on the Chinese. Go right ahead.
The CCP is planning to launch a sophisticated information warfare operation against the United States. And this operation will allegedly include the use of deep fake AI content and other forms of psychological warfare. This would likely involve the Chinese Communist Party manipulating open platforms, social media, even news outlets and so on, outside of China.
So, Frank Gaffney, the Chinese have always been up to this. What makes this new or different?
I think it's just new technology. Deep fakes is a relatively recent phenomenon with the advances being made by artificial intelligence. But it's in keeping, Rich, as you know, with the long-term strategy of the Chinese Communist Party to use any available instrument as a weapon in what they've called an unrestricted warfare strategy against the United States. Going back to the 1990s, in fact, they published the playbook of unrestricted warfare under that title by two senior colonels in the Chinese military, the People's Liberation Army, in 1999. And it pretty much is exactly what they've done ever since. And in fact, we have a pickup team we call the Committee on the Present Danger China. We've done, I think, probably about 210, maybe more, hour-long webinars addressing various aspects of this unrestricted warfare, just to try to raise the awareness of the American people about what has been involved. And what they don't know generally is that it's even been happening, but beyond that, how successful it has been in so many respects.
Frank Gaffney, talk to us about the type of investment. Is this something passive that they're doing? Say, hey, let's throw a few darts their way, see what happens, see what sticks. Or is this a massive investment that the Chinese are making to try and infiltrate our psyche?
Well, there's two aspects to this question, Rich. One is, and both are, by the way, covered in an extraordinarily impressive national security presidential memorandum that President Trump signed out on the 25th of February of this year. Inbound investment on the one hand and outbound investment. The inbound investment, of which I think you're speaking, has involved very substantial uses of funds for the purposes of penetrating this country. They've bought, parts of companies. They've brought in companies and used them as kind of beachheads to become very prominent forces within communities, congressional districts and the like. But I think what's gotten a lot of people's attention of late is that they've been buying up a lot of agricultural land across this country. In fact, the Epoch Times last week in their print edition had a front page story about the hundreds of thousands of acres of American land, much of it in proximity, within 150 miles of military installations inside the United States. And one thing we learned, of course, from the recent attack by Ukraine from places in various parts of Russia against military installations, including destroying 40% of the strategic bomber force of the Russian regime, is that's dangerous to do.
Well, Frank Gaffney, hold that thought. I want to talk about what they're buying in terms of real estate as well as in terms of media, because the Chinese are after us from every angle. Amigos, we're coming right back with Frank Gaffney from the Center for Security Policy and me, Rich Valdez.
Look at Rich Valdez. He's now a radio host, and he's a great radio host.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, amigos, welcome back, familia. We continue our conversation with Frank Gaffney from the Center for Security Policy. And Frank Gaffney, before we left, we were talking about some of the unrestricted warfare that China has waged on our country by way of psyops, by way of them purchasing farmland near military installations all across our country, as well as purchasing media and many other things that you can outline for us. Let's go back to pick up where you left off.
Well, I think I made the point that what we're looking at in farmland purchases, among other investments inbound into this country, has been their acquiring of assets that can be used to help advance their influence operations. Even more insidious, I think, more dangerous, arguably, is the outbound investment, which the president also said in his memorandum we need to stop. Namely, the use by Wall Street of funds entrusted to them to manage by pension funds and mutual funds and exchange-traded funds and index funds and other investment vehicles, people's college funds, for heaven's sakes. They've migrated it, in some estimates, as much as $2 to $5, maybe even $6 trillion of our money. And that money has been invested in Chinese companies, including many that work directly for the People's Liberation Army, the military of China. This is insane, Rich. And it has been going on for, a very long time, thanks in part to a sweetheart deal. Get this, that Joe Biden presided over the negotiation of, that gave the Chinese preferential access to our capital markets. They don't have to abide by any of our laws or regulations that govern securities, uniquely in the world. No American company has that privilege. No foreign company other than the Chinese. What's up with that? It's crazy, and it's created an intensified danger to our country.
So the sweetheart deal from Beijing Biden is something that we need to reverse. What's is this legislation that's required, or is it something as simple as presidential action?
I don't even think it requires presidential action. I believe that the chairman of the Securities and Exchange Commission, Paul Atkins, could do it unilaterally with a stroke of a pen on 30 days' notice. And you're absolutely right. It is wildly overdue, and it should be done now.
Is there any thought with regard to the SEC not doing that because they want to be in this situation with China, or is this simply an oversight?
I don't think it's an oversight. I believe that the Wall Street community, that the SEC is more or less a captured agency of, wants to continue this practice. In fact, Jamie Dimon of J.P. Morgan and Brian Moynihan of Bank of America, just about 2 months ago, poured another $5 to almost $6 billion into a Chinese company called CATL, C-A-T-L, that makes advanced batteries, among other things, for Chinese submarines to make them a greater danger to our fleet. Now, I consider that treason. But under the present arrangement, it's permissible. It's, in fact, being facilitated by Paul Atkins at the SEC because he's not stepping into the breach to prevent it from happening. And unfortunately, the president's memorandum is not being enforced. And that needs to be rectified as well.
Wow. Now, talk to us about these media buys. There's been some interesting media buys to get the Chinese out in front of the American people. Tell us more.
Well, there's any number of examples of this. They've used advertising supplements in the major newspapers of our country. That's, I think, not as popular a means of influencing us as others. They've bought up the theaters in the United States. And I'm very proudly helping promote a film called The Unrestricted War. It's been made about China at the beginning of the COVID, biological attack on us. And it can't get shown in this country in theaters because the Chinese own the theaters. And they won't let it happen. But here's the real kicker, Rich. The single most, I think, dangerous medium at their disposal for influencing Americans, which they are using relentlessly. You may have heard of it. It's called TikTok.
Yeah, I was about to say,
TikTok is now a news source for millions, if not 100 million Americans across this country. It's not just the dance videos and so on. It's propaganda being purveyed by TikTok in ways that are incredibly harmful to our country. Look at these riots, not just demonstrations, riots about the Palestinians and Hamas and so on. TikTok was instrumental in promoting that cause and getting young people in this country to turn out on college campuses and in cities across the country for Hamas, a terrorist organization, but supported by the Chinese Communist Party. It's part of the red-green axis, as we call it, and it is insidious in the extreme. It is, I think, really a dagger pointed at the heart of America.
Frank Gaffney, I couldn't agree with you more. And I think just like you've got the all this massive investment that you're saying the SEC is allowing, it's the same thing as allowing TikTok to exist. It's a big source of income for a lot of people. It's become an industry of its own, and the Chinese know that, so they're like, all right, you can come after me, but you're also going to pull down the whole house of cards. And this is the brilliance of their communism woven into capitalism. And I don't know that we have an answer, but for going cold turkey and saying, they've got to go. Your thoughts?
I think that's exactly right, Rich. And it's not going to be easy. Cold turkey is never easy. But at this point, especially insofar as what we've done with all the things we've just been talking about, acquiescing in their penetration, their efforts to, capture our elite, as they call it, and our funding streams, they have now gotten themselves in a position where they're no longer confined to these various unrestricted, pre-kinetic, pre-violent kinds of warfare. They now have the option, having built with our money in no small measure, the most comprehensive and aggressive military buildup in human history. They have the option for the old-fashioned kind of warfare, the shooting kind. And going cold turkey may be the only thing we can do to prevent ourselves from being absolutely in their crosshairs and possibly taken down by that means, among others.
That doesn't sound good to me, Frank Gaffney. Let everybody know how they can learn more about the research that you're doing and the work that you're preparing over at the Center for Security Policy and the other organizations.
Well, actually, thank you for the opportunity. I'm actually no longer with the Center for Security Policy, the Institute for the American Future. I founded it and ran it for 37 years, but I left in September. But the Institute for the American Future, which has a very easily remembered domain, usfuture.org is where you can find a lot of the work that we do. Also, I've got a television program and a Substack called Securing America at substack.com.
Outstanding work. Frank Gaffney, keep up the good work. We appreciate it. You're a gentleman, a scholar, and a patriot. Godspeed, sir.
As are you. Thank you, my friend. God bless.
Yes, sir. God bless. And amigos, we continue. Your thoughts, your calls on everything that's going on. Plus, what's the story with Kilmar Obrego Garcia? This guy's out there, and he's in El Salvador. He gets deported. He gets re-imported. Now there's talk about sending him to Uganda. What is he going to be on the running mate of Mamdani? I have no idea what's going on. We're going to find out more about that when we come back. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
After the guest leaves every night and we're doing open phones, kind of at the heartbeat of America. And you sit there in this radio studio and suddenly you hear voices. Mobile, Dallas, New York, Miami. And there's kind of a conglomeration of America all in one room.
Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
Today, MS-13 gangbanger and human trafficker Kilmar Obrego Garcia turned himself into ICE in Baltimore. Do you have any comment on this? And why are the Democrats so emotionally attached to this man who beats his wife and is part of a terrorist organization?
Because they think he's going to be good for votes, and I think he's very bad for votes. These people are deranged. He's not good for votes. He beat the hell out of his wife. His wife is afraid to even talk about him. She's been mauled by this animal. And, through a system of liberal courts, he's doing things, but no, we have that under control. And Pam has got that very much under control. Do you want to comment on it, Pam?
No, we've got him under control. He will no longer terrorize our country. He's currently charged with human smuggling, including children. The guy needs to be in prison. He doesn't need to be on the streets like all these liberals want him to be. And as part of this operation here in DC, we've also taken off MS-13 members. We've taken, I think just last night, we got a TDA guy off our streets right here, right around from where we all work. Another TDA member gone because of this project. So we're going to keep America safe from all of these foreign terrorist organizations, including Abrego Garcia.
So you've got Kilmar Abrego Garcia. He's back in the crosshairs to be deported. We're going to continue. I got some audio from his attorney, but I want to get you guys to weigh in. Your thoughts on the communism, your thoughts on the New York City mayor's race, your thoughts on Kilmar Abrego Garcia, and everything else we're talking about. Let's go to Daytona Beach, Florida, WTTB, and check in with Lester. Lester, go right ahead.
Thank you, Rich. Okay,
Yes,
earlier somebody said that they did not see how Mayor Adams could get reelected, and I'm saying Mayor Adams, can get reelected the same way that O.J. Simpson got acquitted of murder.
If the glove doesn't fit, you must acquit?
The race card. White race, black race, it's a cancer.
Yeah, I don't see it. Tell me more. You're saying he's going to say, I'm black, you need to vote for me?
He doesn't have to say it.
Well, I mean, he's not saying it now, and he's at 8%. 8%. He's a sitting mayor.
All right. To be more specific, the jury was questioned on the O.J. Simpson trial like 10 years later. And I think 4 or 5 of the women who were black said that they voted for acquittal. And yes, they believed he was guilty, but they felt that history deserved for him to be innocent.
Yeah, the thing, Lester, is that this is that was a one-shot deal. Adams already had that shot, right? I think he already ran. And anybody who was giving him this, if what you're saying exists, that people were saying, I'm going to vote for him because he's black, then we would have seen it happen, at least in the primary. In the primary, the majority of the black votes went to Andrew Cuomo, the former governor. So he was the one that was leading the way, and he still lost, right? Because Mamdani still beat him for that Democrat nomination. So I don't see Adams winning. Here's the only way I see Adams winning is a man with wonderfully coiffed hair in the White House. We call him Donaldus Magnus El Trompito, the 45th president of these United States, comes to the rescue by sending in a bunch of federal troops and cleaning up New York City in a spectacular way between now and November, and allowing Adams to get all of that Trump-adjacent media coverage of people saying, yeah, you know what? Thank God President Trump cleaned up New York City, and him trying to be there to ride those coattails and say, yes, let me break my arm, patting myself on the back. I just made New York City great again with Donald Trump. And then I think you have a shot at Adams getting a bump where, people would take him seriously. But right now, the people that live in New York, the people that work in New York, that have to deal with the subways, that have to deal with being there, they realize this man is an absolute disaster. He is an absolute disaster. He's on his second police commissioner. The first one was indicted. He's got more members of his people indicted on Friday. Now he's not even taking questions on that stuff today. So I think it's going to be very tough to dig himself out. And the chances of Trump actually helping him that way, I think, are slim to none, because politically he's not a winner. And why would Trump attach himself to somebody that's not a winner? Just doesn't make sense. But hey, stranger things have happened, I would suppose. Lester in Daytona Beach, Florida, thank you for the call. I appreciate it. Let us continue. I want to go to Mel. Mel's in Albany, Oregon, if that's right. KUMA, go right ahead.
Yes, that is correct. Thank you very much. I appreciate your program and the wisdom that you impart when you listen to people and consider all sides. A good moral decision requires to understand what the opposition is all about. That coupled with the fact that what is stunning to me is we're supposed to have There's all sorts of portions of our life where we have to put proper labels on things we eat and things we do and the services we get at banks and everything. But somehow there's an improper label that has been snookered away from the Democrat and with this Mamdani gentleman, that he is not in any way, shape, or form a Democrat. He is a communist. Why do people keep on saying, and on the Democrat side, we have this fellow that's radical. He is label it what it is. It's the Republicans and or Democrat Party line that has been moving along in the past. But when the snookery that goes on when somebody who's clearly ill-intended and a communist, to even include the word Democrat.
Right. Well, let me ask you a question, Mel. Who would you say is the most popular Democrat in Congress today?
Gosh. Today?
Come on. Yeah, today.
I can't even think of who to say.
Whichever one you name, I can read your mind and tell you they're communists too. Because lamentably, the Democrat Party has become synonymous with being sympathetic towards the Communist Manifesto and embracing Marxism. And whether it's Ilhan Omar, AOC, Jasmine Crockett, or some of the ones that have been ousted like Cori Bush or Jamal Bowman, they all, for birds of a feather that flock together. Mel, thanks for the call. I got to take a pause here, but I appreciate your thought, and I think you're onto something. Folks, we'll be right back.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, amigos, welcome back. Rich Valdez, we continue with your calls. Let's go to our buddy Paul. Paul's calling us from Boise, Idaho, streaming the show tonight, richvaldez.com. Paul, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Go for it.
Thanks for taking my call, Rich.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, the one thing I did want to address right away would be the communism of the CCP. They're not playing fair. Let's just be honest. They're taking us into the space where they've got a lot of satellites. They're taking us down into the ocean, and they've got us surveilled 24/7. And they don't play fair. They play to win is what they play to do. And
well, if you're going to play, you got to play to win. And you know what's crazy is they also play with spy balloons, right, or what they call weather balloons, and everything else that they do. And this is a serious issue. I don't for one second think that President Trump and Marco Rubio are taking it easy here. I think they're being judicious and they're doing a lot to stop it. This is just a massive undertaking, and they've got to get everybody on their side on board and pulling in the same direction, which I think they're in the process of doing. Thank you, brother. the music means I got to go. Paul in Boise, Idaho. And amigos, we come back. The rest of your calls and more are coming up. 833-482-5337, 833-4-Valdez.
Live from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez. America's favorite late night talk program featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media. Welcome back for another hour of programming here, and it's Monday night. We're live and national, 7 minutes past the top of the hour. Looking forward to your calls on open phones across America. Give me a call, 833-482-5337, 833-4-Valdez. And as we talked about this a little bit on Friday with respect to the, I'm going to call it the fraud, right? The fraud that was perpetrated against Donaldus Magnus, El Trompito, the 45th president of these United States. He's now the 47th president of these United States. And that particular fraud was this case in New York. Now, Trump was vindicated by the court saying, no, you can't charge him $400 and some odd $million, is $500 million for, whatever it is that you say he did. So, in effect, the penalty was amended, right? He can't. It's not the penalty anymore. They say he's still liable in the case, but that's fine. I mean, I don't mind if you say I'm guilty of something as long as I don't have to pay you $500 million, right? Seems like a huge win for El Trompito. So we're going to get to that and the latest on Letitia James straight ahead. I also want to talk about this Kilmar Obrego Garcia. Right, this is the guy. This guy is like a bad rash, as the great one would say. Right, he goes away, but he comes right back. And Kilmar was sent to El Salvador, where he's from. He's a citizen of El Salvador, and he was there. And they said, "No, you can't have him there. He might get killed in jail there." And every Democrat in America went to El Salvador to lobby for him to come back, having lunch with him, having margaritas with him. It was quite the spectacle, and now he's back. He's back, and they're even singing songs for him, which I find remarkable. But this is what's happening with Kilmar, and now he's been released again earlier today, and voila, he's back in custody. But not before a bunch of radicals could sing a song for Kilmar Obrego Garcia. Listen to this report from the Fox News Channel.
Administration says he will be deported to Uganda, sparking protests and even a song from a group that calls itself the Rapid Response Choir.
Kilmar is our neighbor. You can't have him, Trump. No! Kilmar is our neighbor. You can't have him, Trump.
Kilmar is our neighbor. You can't have him, Trump. Wow. Just when you thought you heard it all, now you've really heard it all. These were a bunch of men and women wearing pink, and they were singing this song very gleefully. Not a very diverse group, honestly. It was a bunch of white men and white women, kind of what I think Stephen Miller the other day called white hippies. And they seemed to fit the bill. But these were the folks that were there supporting Kilmar Obrego Garcia. And again, he was taken back into custody. And President Trump and Pam Bondi earlier saying that they've got this under control. He's back in detention, and he's expected to be deported to Uganda. Now, his lawyer weighed in on this, saying, no, not so fast. I don't like this. His lawyer is Simon Sandoval Moschenberg. Listen to this one, cut 16.
There's no reason for ICE to detain him. They don't have present legal authority to remove him to Uganda because he's requested a reasonable fear interview. He has the right to court proceedings, right? And, he was already on electronic monitoring and essentially home confinement through the U.S. Marshal Service. So there's no reason for them to detain him. But did I expect them to detain him? Yes, I did. The Baltimore ICE office has been notorious. Even now, with ICE all across the country out of control, the Baltimore ICE office, since February, has been one of the worst in the nation of, people coming into this building through the front door and being taken out via the back door, including people who've been, on annual check-in schedules for years and years and years with no problems whatsoever. The Baltimore ICE office has really been one of the worst in the whole country about taking people into detention for no reason.
I got to tell you, this is why I show up to work every day, because the semantics, the rhetoric that we see on display is really just remarkable, right? And this guy's, he's earning his paycheck here. The Baltimore ICE office is notorious. Notorious for what, sir? For doing their job? for enforcing immigrations and customs? I mean, he says ICE is all across the country out of control. No, sir, they are in control. Their job is to control illegal immigration and to deport people. It seems like they're doing a lot of that. Unbelievable. What else did he say here? He says that they don't have a right to detain this man. Well, seems like they do, because this guy's been in court more times than anybody, right? And every time they sue the Trump people, nothing happens. So it's clear to me that, well, I'll say one thing did happen. They did bring him back. And they brought him back for what? To stand trial for human smuggling. Attorney General Pam Bondi and President Trump are in the White House today, and they made it very clear that this man has been charged, and they're going to figure it out one way or the other. Listen to this, cut number 15.
Today, MS-13 gangbanger and human trafficker Kilmar Abrego Garcia turned himself into ICE in Baltimore. Do you have any comment on this? And why are the Democrats so emotionally attached to this man who beats his wife and is part of a terrorist organization?
Because they think he's going to be good for votes, and I think he's very bad for votes. These people are deranged. He's not good for votes. He beat the hell out of his wife. His wife is afraid to even talk about him. She's been mauled by this animal. And, through a system of liberal courts, he's doing things. But, no, we have that under control. And Pam has got that very much under control. Do you want to comment on it, Pam?
No, we've got him under control. He will no longer terrorize our country. He's currently charged with human smuggling, including children. The guy needs to be in prison. He doesn't need to be on the streets like all these liberals want him to be. And as part of this operation here in D.C., we've also taken off MS-13 members. We've taken, I think just last night, we got a TDA guy off our streets right here, right around from where we all work. Another TDA member gone because of this project. So we're going to keep America safe from all of these foreign terrorist organizations, including Abrego Garcia.
So, again, when you're on a first-name basis with the Attorney General and the President, it's probably not going to go good for you if they're your adversaries. It's my supposition. What do I know? We're going to see how this thing plays out. Of course, I'm going to get your thoughts, your calls, your opinions, and reactions on that. Plus, I want to get into a bunch more. The Tish James, right? Tish James and the mortgage fraud. We see today President Trump firing one of the governors on the board of governors of the Federal Reserve for the same thing, mortgage fraud. This is Lisa Cook. And I love the projection and I love the reality. All right, they projected that Trump was this mortgage criminal, yet he produced the banks. The banks said he did nothing wrong. He produced witnesses. They said there was nothing wrong. There was no money that was, illicitly changing hands. Everything was on the up and up. Yet it's the same Democrats that were accusing him that are the ones guilty of exactly what they said he did. You just can't make this type of irony up. Anyway, amigos, we continue the conversation with the candidate for Attorney General in the state of New York. He's an immigration attorney. Michael Henry will join us, and he's going to weigh in on his rival, Letitia James. Don't go in.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
I want to listen to you, Rich, all the time.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
A New York appeals court just this morning has thrown out President Donald Trump's massive civil fraud penalty. The decision from a 5-panel group in New York's appellate division changed the original decision that stood to cost Trump over $500 million. One appeals judge calling the lower court's penalty an excessive fine that violates the 8th Amendment of the United States Constitution. You might remember that New York Attorney General Letitia James' office says despite this decision, they will not be dropping the case.
So that's a report from the Fox News Channel, and that was from Thursday. That was the big breaking news. Now, I want to get some analysis on that to give us the rest of the story. Is Michael Henry. He's a candidate for Attorney General in the state of New York. Michael Henry, welcome, sir.
Thank you, Rich. Thank you for having me. Good to be with you.
You bet. You bet. If you can talk a little louder, I don't know if we got your volume all the way up, but I want to make sure everybody hears you. And Michael Henry, talk to me. What's your initial reaction to this? I'm happy that it happened. I was a little bit surprised that it did, because I felt like they were going to hold a lot of these things in court, kind of like through the end of Trump's administration, to kind of start harassing him again, leaving the White House. But it was adjudicated a little bit faster, and I think that's a good thing. Your thoughts?
Yeah, well, I was telling people early on, if you listen to the oral arguments, and this is an area of law I practice, there were some concerns that the appellate court had, and I would tell your audience, the First Department is probably considered the most liberal appellate court in the state of New York. It's considered very liberal, as a matter of fact. But during the oral arguments, there was multiple issues they had. The first one was the statute of limitations issue. The second one was there was a lot of confusion. People thought this case was brought under the Martin Act. It was actually brought under Executive Law 63. And the AG was arguing that there were victims, while the Trump defense was these were sophisticated banks. They were paid in full. They testified to that, and they actually made enormous profits. Additionally, his properties are valued different because when his name's attached to a property, it increases the value. And then the third aspect of it was the court clearly was concerned about the economic impact, allowing the AG to play these types of games with a political opponent and impose these types of fines and weaponization of her office. And it seemed like they had a real concern of what this would have as far as an impact on businesses and the economy of the financial epicenter of the world in New York City.
Now, Michael Henry, this is important because I think people don't realize that when Donald Trump has been in this business for a long time, including people leasing his name and putting it on other buildings that aren't even his, just because they know it would perform better that way. And I don't know he does that anymore, but it definitely was the case back in the 80s. And this is a normal thing for him to license his brand, yet he seems to be penalized for it.
Right. Well, there's two things. You're correct. He does license his name. People will pay to put his name on a building, but some of that's also been exaggerated with some of his buildings because people don't want to. They try to create this narrative that he doesn't know real estate and construction as well as he does. But he does manage, to my understanding, him and his family do manage a lot of properties. But there is a brand that he has that increases value of buildings that he's attached to. And, I was in the mortgage industry prior to being an attorney. It's a common known thing of, like you said, the licensing aspect of it. And then I think what you saw here was to impose a $350 million judgment, which with interest it increased over $500 million in a situation where there was no victim, essentially. And I think the court bought that argument. The real estate industry is one of the industries, along with financial services, that really keeps the New York City economy afloat and brings in billions upon billions of dollars. And I think that what the courts kind of viewed as, some of the judges at least, now what they did was they split on liability, which is going to go back up to the Court of Appeals, but they tossed a judgment. And I think they were saying, if this was not Donald Trump, would she have gone for these excessive fines? And there was one judge specifically that said she basically targeted him while she was running for office and then found something to get him on. So that was a concern of the effect of what it would have on real estate and the economics of the city of New York at this point.
Well, I think it's a valid point, at least the first part, the looking for a reason to get him. And I mean, if it weren't for James herself saying that, we're going to get this guy, people wouldn't believe it as much. But she's kind of like not helping her case, is she?
No, and look, this is Letitia James. She holds a press conference. She says her three little catchphrases like "art of the steal" and "nobody's above the law" and "I'm a voice for the voiceless." And then she goes to court against the NRA. The case gets dismissed. She goes after local officials like our Rensselaer County executive upstate, Steve McLaughlin, is very outspoken. Frog marches him out of court, out of his office, over $3,000. He gets acquitted in 5 minutes. Now, this crown jewel of her case goes before the most liberal court in the state of New York at the appellate division, and they toss her judgment. She has wasted tens of millions of taxpayer dollars on her personal vendettas, only to have court after court after court expose her complete deficient lawyering skills. And that's the problem here. And then come to find out, which I knew a lot of this in 2022, but people didn't want to cover it. She has issues of her own when it comes to mortgages and properties. So it's really interesting to see how this dynamic has changed over the last couple months.
What do you think are some of the outcomes of that? Because, I mean, we've seen similar with Adam Schiff. Now we're seeing a little bit of the same with Lisa Cook, one of the governors on the Board of Governors of the Federal Reserve. And I feel like this is becoming a trend amongst Democrats, but I'm sure it happens across the board. And it's happening now because people, the irony is rich, and people wanted to say that Trump was doing all of these things when he wasn't doing anything. And instead, it's them that are doing something.
Right. So if you look at her mortgage situation, there's these two instances where she signed mortgages saying she was married to her dad. So I guess everyone thought she was this Margaret Thatcher of Attorney Generals. Come to find out she's the Elon Omar of Attorney Generals. But I mean, that's the worst one. And that might be outside the statute of limitations unless this shows an ongoing pattern. But I mean, she has another loan where she has her 5-family classified as a 4-family. She has this primary residence in Virginia where she's trying to blame it on a power of attorney, yet her power of attorney says, I attest to the fact that this will be my primary residence. And 2 attorneys in her office notarized it. So what you see is a pattern. Now, I was in the mortgage industry. These are all things you would do to get a lower interest rate, a lower monthly payment. And what's striking about the one in Virginia is her CYA, cover your 3-letter A word, email was sent to the broker or banker, whoever it was, saying, just so you know, this is not going to be my primary residence. I did a lot of second properties for people in places like the Carolinas and Florida. I never had somebody send me an email like that. It was almost like she was covering herself. And she runs around saying, I was trained by the best and I'm the best of the best. Yet you can't look at a mortgage application on 2 different occasions and say, I'm married to my dad. Or you look at a property in Virginia when you're the Attorney General of the state of New York and it says, my primary residence, I'm attesting to this on a power of attorney. So it's either she was trained by the best and she knew what she was doing, or she lacks the basic reading comprehension skills of an elementary school kid, because I could take a 12-year-old, put an application in front of them, and they're going to turn around and say to me, I'm not married to my dad. So the reality is, I think her real problem is this Virginia property. I think she's going to blame it on the power of attorney, but they might show an ongoing pattern of what she's done over a 30-year period while she's been barred as an attorney for that whole time.
Well, we're going to talk about that as well as your campaign and some of the fundamental tenets of the campaign when we come back. Folks, we're coming back with Michael Henry and me, Rich Valdez. Don't go anywhere.
Voted best head of hair in live late night radio 6 years in a row. It's Rich Valdez.
A great campaign in 22. He's back now to seal the deal against Letitia James, and he's been endorsed by some of the biggest names. Huge MAGA endorsement by Elise Stefanik, Republican conference chair. He's also been endorsed by the New York Post, by Curtis Sliwa, so many others, the New York State Troopers. And Michael Henry, talk to me about how a nice Italian kid like you ends up running for Attorney General.
In 2022, I was frustrated with a lot of things that were going on. I was always around politics. I was in the Federal Society. When I was in law school, did events for Justice Scalia, had some leadership roles. In 2008 is when I really became political for the first time, just because I really was concerned when I saw President Obama become president. It might be funny, but I probably wouldn't have went to law school if it wasn't for your old boss Mark Levin. I actually read 2 of his books, and he had a huge impact, and I understood what the law could do, especially for constitutional issues, and that propelled me into being a leader in the Federal Society. When 2022 came around, it just kind of happened. I have my own practice. I'm of counsel with a law firm that's about to be 700 attorneys. I'm a trustee of a large pension fund. I have a good life. I love what I do, but I hate what I see what's going on. And what I've seen is so many people are afraid of Letitia James, but she's really amateur hour. She's a deficient attorney. She's a bully who's bullied people her whole career, and she has a rinky-dink operation. And for me, I could not live with myself if I did not do this. I got 46% in 2022. There's things that have changed since then. For example, in 2022, nobody ever heard the term Trade de Agua. So since then, we've had a migrant crisis. We had her and Kathy Hochul fire 3,000 correctional officers upstate. There's a homeless crisis throughout the state. There's a drug epidemic that's worsened. And a lot of that is because she doesn't work with local district attorneys and sheriffs in local communities. We have an energy crisis. And meanwhile, we have 100 years worth of energy under our feet in the southern tier of the state that we don't explore. But right across the border, Josh Shapiro in Pennsylvania is extracting energy every single day. And there's a boom going on the Pennsylvania side of the border. So for me, it was seeing the attack on agriculture in this state. And for me, it was watching what people are going through, what families are going through. And Tish James doesn't wake up every day saying, I'm going to protect New Yorkers and enforce the law. She weaponizes office against political opponents. She targets President Trump on a daily basis, and she ignores the issues that matter to New Yorkers the most. And what I've seen in her is an individual who forgets that the New York State Attorney General is the people's lawyer, and she believes it's really to be the enforcer for the Democrat National Committee. And that's the difference between us. I really want to come into this office, take the politics out, streamline it, bring in bureau chiefs that understand the bureaus that they are overseeing, and make this office responsive to the needs of the constituents so we have a pro-growth economy while working with local law enforcement to get a hold of the drug crisis and the crime crisis that is swept throughout the state in places like New York City, Syracuse, Rochester, Albany, and even in our smaller suburban and rural communities.
Talk to us about the damage that was done by Andrew Cuomo signing this no cash bail into law.
It's not just no cash bail. It's no cash bail. And Kathy and his parole board, which Kathy Hochul's not removed anybody from the parole board, that's let out almost over 40 cop killers. You have less is more, raise the age, clean slate, the HALT Act. I mean, it's law after law after law. But Tish James was the original supporter of cashless bail. As a matter of fact, when she first ran for the city council, she was so radical, she ran on the Working Families Party line because the Democrat Party wouldn't endorse her. So what has happened now is we have a no fear, no consequence mentality. So people go in and it's a revolving door, right? They rob stores. You see it all the time. Like a handful of people are constantly robbing stores, robbing individuals, drugs, and they're out the same day. So you have that going on, but you also have an issue with police hiring. For example, I was in a Verizon store buying a new phone today, and the kid that was helping me, his dad's retired detective, his brother's on the job. His brother's in a precinct for 2.5 years. There hasn't been a new rookie that's come into that precinct because they can't get new officers. They don't have enough new officers to staff the whole city. So what you've had is these pro-criminal laws, and then you have an inability to retain police or keep police, or in some instances, firing 3,000 correctional officers. This started with Cuomo, but I will tell you, Kathy Hochul and Letitia James have doubled down. And it's really, really a serious problem. They could BS everybody with the stats. Look, stabbings in New York City are at 30-year highs, subway pushings, subway crimes. You know, they might say, oh, gun violence is down. Well, go to Rochester. Walk around Rochester. It can sound like Iraq sometimes during the Iraq war. So I think what we have to do is, number one, not only elect an attorney general, elect a Republican governor who's going to come in, also get people into state senate that will repeal many of these laws. A lot of people say you amend them. My personal opinion is you repeal it and you replace it. If you want to put some laws in regarding cashless bail for less violent offenders, you go in and you do it the right way. Because when you amend it, it's just going to make more confusion and make it more of a mess. And as the AG, I could also introduce program bills into the state legislature to try to effectuate positive change. But you said it yourself. It started with Cuomo, and it's just been, it has not stopped. The amount of bad laws. And when you see Tish James on TV, you never see her talk about cashless bail, even though she got what she wanted. You never see, you ask her to raise the age, she's quiet. You ask her about less is more, she's quiet. You ask her about clean slate, she's quiet. You ask her about the migrant crisis, she's quiet. You ask her about anti-Semitism and encampments at universities like Columbia, and she's quiet, even though she gets $30,000 a year from Columbia to teach as an adjunct professor. So for the people of the state of New York, it's very important that you have an attorney general that is going to fight for the people, make sure people are safe, and make sure people could sleep at night when their kids are away in college or their husband's coming home from work, because people do not feel safe. And this is something that we're going to be able to go in there with the next governor and really get things moving in the right direction, because I believe 2026 is our last best shot to save this state. And I think we're going to do it this time, which is why I'm running and why I think we're going to have a great governor candidate that's going to retire Kathy Hochul.
Yeah, it sounds like a plan. I think Stefanik is fantastic. Talk to me about the danger of Zoran Mamdani in New York City.
Well, aside from the fact, okay, that he clearly is a communist, he clearly is an anti-Semite, there's something to be said for life experience, right? You have a lot of life experience. I have a lot of life experience. We've failed. We've climbed our way back to the top. This kid is 33 years old and never had a job. Forget about his crazy policies. Who his deputy mayor is going to be? Your first job, real job, because he's a no-show backbenching assemblyman, your first job is going to be mayor of the biggest city in the United States of America, the financial epicenter of the world. He's going to be managing over 30,000 police officers, and he hates the police. I mean, do people think that? And then you add to the fact he's a communist, and you add to the fact that he's an anti-Semite. This is a recipe for disaster. And I'll tell you, a lot of people say to me, oh, it'll be good if he wins, it'll help you next year. I'm not that kind of person. If somebody has to get hurt because of this guy's policies and that's going to help me win, that's not me. My friend Curtis is running for mayor, Curtis Sliwa. I want Curtis to win because Curtis's heart's in the right place and Curtis cares about the city more than anybody. But this is a recipe for disaster with this kid. And I will tell you, even when I travel upstate, whether it's Syracuse, whether it's a suburban area or rural area, he is the topic. People are afraid that if he wins, the far left, the communists, the DSA, they're going to be emboldened to start primarying people in their own party throughout the state. So what happens in New York City affects not only the rest of the state, it affects the rest of the country.
Listen, nobody said it better than you right now. I think you're spot on. And tell us how people can help you with your ground game. Do you need donations? Do you need support? What's going on?
Right. So two things. There's a matching funds program in New York State right now. So every donation between $5 and $250 is matched 6 to 1. I've already qualified in the program, hit almost $1 million already on the match. So we're rocking and rolling there. People could go to Henry for New York, and it's henryforny.com. You hit the donate page. Also, people could sign up because we're obviously going to look to build a ground game. We're working with the build out in the Asian community, the Hispanic community, which I really see an opportunity to really start building upon President Trump's gains with Latinos, especially in areas like the Bronx and Queens. And then also a lot of work we're trying to do in the Jewish community, because I think a lot of Jewish New Yorkers are afraid and they need to know that we have a voice for them. So we're really building out. We're really doing well with the match. And, we're going to retire Tish James. It's going to, I'm looking forward to this. I hope she's there in November and I get to wish her well on whatever her next endeavor is. But for the people in New York, change is coming. And I thank you once again for having me on.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Folks, go to the website, henryforny.com, henryfornewyork.com. Michael Henry, Godspeed to you, brother. Keep rocking and rolling. We need more people like you out there.
Thank you. Good to talk to you, Rich.
You bet. Likewise. And amigos, your thoughts, your calls, your reactions, and everything else coming up right now.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. Call now, 833-4VALDEZ. That's That's 833-482-5337. 833-4Valdez. That's Valdez with an S.
All right, amigos, welcome back. We continue our conversation with you guys, we the people. And let's go to Montreal, Canada, check in with Tony, WVMT. Tony, go for it, brother.
Listen, nice to talk to you again, Rich, but your Moran, Zoran, Zoranista, Mamdani, we have one of those in Montreal. I was in the Montreal Municipal City Hall tonight, and I was listening, and you see what inertia is and stagnation and non-movement. Nothing is going on. Self-aggrandizement, self-promotion, nothing for the people. It's always just talk, and no solutions. And when I hear Zoran speak, I call him Zoranista. I call the mayor of Montreal Governor Zoranista Green Plant. Her name is Valerie Plant, so I gave her the name Zoranista Green Plant because her name is Plant, Plante, but she is exactly like Mamdani. And if anybody's listening, in Montreal, DEI and transgenderism and promotion of the green scam will not work, hasn't worked. We have 20,000 homeless in Montreal, but we have all kinds of vanity projects. And the vanity projects that this gentleman in New York thinks that he's going to advocate for, free this, free buses. We've tried that in Montreal, doesn't work, and it's created humongous debts and debt structures. And I'll just say this, Zoran Mamdani is a Bowdoin graduate, from what I understand. I'm a Colby College graduate. I will never, ever say that Bowdoin is not a great school, but I don't know how this gentleman got in.
They got you. I can't hear you, brother. I apologize. The end part cut off. Tony in Montreal, but yes, very well said, sir. The Zoranista, as you referred to him. This guy is something special. He's a great actor. He's good at the retail politics. He's an AstroTurf kind of guy. But that doesn't mean that doesn't work. The old saying, BS can get you to the top. It just can't keep you there. So be guided accordingly, amigos. Tony, thanks for the call. Shout out to WVMT in Vermont. And let me see. Well, I'm going to take a quick pause right here. We'll come back to my buddy Jerome in Charleston on WTMA. Plus, the rest of your calls, 833-482-5337, 833-4-Valdez.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, amigos, we continue with your calls. It's Rich Valdez keeping you company live and national, 833-482-5337, 833-4-Valdez. And if I were in the control room, I would have bumped back with a song called Gin and Juice by Snoop Dogg from back in 1992. And that's because Snoop Dogg's making headlines today. He's taking a lot of heat, and we are going to continue with your calls. But I just want to throw this in here before we run out of time. Snoop is taking heat, Uncle Snoop. And why is Unc in trouble? Well, he's in trouble because he said he took his nephew to watch a movie, a cartoon movie, and all of a sudden there were two women making a baby. Listen to this.
That goes back to the presentation I spoke to you earlier. What you see is what you see. They putting it everywhere.
Yeah.
I took my grandson to see, what was the movie with Buzz Light?
Toy Story?
Not that one, but
the new Buzz, the Lightyear. I think it's called Lightyear.
With Kiki Palmer's in that movie.
Okay.
She plays like the daughter. So we watching it, and the lady, which is Kiki's mama, they move on into the space years. They move down the line. They're like, man, she had a baby with a woman. Well, my grandson in the middle of the movie like, Papa Snoop, how she have a baby with a woman? She a woman. Oh, shit. I didn't come in for this shit. I just came to watch the goddamn movie. Hey, man, watch the movie. They just said she and she had a baby. They both women's. How did she have a baby? Shh. The movie ain't over with.
The movie ain't over yet. And again, Snoop saying, I'm not here for this. Well, apparently he's taken a lot of heat for saying that. You've got LGBTQ groups that are out there saying, he shouldn't be saying that, this, that, and the other. But he's just calling it like it is, telling the truth. He was just trying to watch a movie with his grandkid and had to be bombarded with something that had no place in a kid's movie. Now, I remember a time when, and I'm almost favoring this time, where it was like the mob, right? When the mob was in charge, the mafia, people call the LGBTQ, they call them the alphabet mafia. So they say the alphabet mafia is after Snoop Dogg right now. But I remember a time when it really was the real mafia, right? And the real mafia they made sure nobody touched the kids. The kids were always off limits, even the kids of their enemies. That's just how they did it. And it makes me think, do we need a modern day mafia in our politics? Does our political system need that? Like, just imagine if the mafia was running for president of the United States. I mean, just imagine like Tony Soprano, right? Tony Soprano 2028. Hey, you want I should lower your taxes? You think you want to sleep women with women? Maybe you should sleep with the fishes. You know what I mean? I just imagine what that would be like. I think that would be funny. At least, a skit would be good. Anyway, I don't know. Maybe I'm off my rocker right here. But let's get your reactions to what's going on. Let's hit the phones again. Let's go to Jerome, Charleston, South Carolina, WTMA. Jerome, go right ahead.
Hey, you've been off your rocker a long time ago. Hey, Trump can call the National Guard now. He can call the National Guard now, but he couldn't call them on January 6th. But what happened to the number then, huh?
As I understand it, you got a bunch of people under oath saying that Trump tried to bring in 10,000 National Guard troops, and it was Nancy Pelosi that said nope, because she's, in effect, the person that had to make that call with Muriel Bowser. So, I don't know. You tell me. The Pentagon had him on standby.
Hey, he doesn't need her now, but he needed her then, right? Well, have I heard that
no,
before?
he needed the Speaker of the House, and he has that now in Mike Johnson. He had opposition in Nancy Pelosi, so I think you answered your own question. Jerome in Charleston, South Carolina. Nice try, no cigar, always a pleasure. And amigos, always great to be with you guys every night, live and national. I want to thank you for everybody that listens to the podcast, both This Is America, which is on hiatus and coming back, and this one, America at Night. Rich Valdez, America at Night, because those 5-star ratings, they go a long way. So I want to thank you for leaving those reviews. I appreciate you. Hasta la próxima. Take care, good night, and God bless you, America. I'm Rich Valdez.